Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. I'm super excited to be kicking off the 27th annual Eastside Culture Crawl with our first Talking Arts panel of the season. Tonight, we have three video artists with us. So just so you know, I'm Kate MacDonald, and as well as being your moderator this evening, I've been co-curating the moving art video selections with the Eastside Art Society's artistic and executive director, Esther Rosenberg, for the last 8 years. And I'm also a crawl artist myself. So tonight we have with us 3/4 of two duos who are featured in this year's Moving Art Selections. So I'll just make a couple of quick introductions. Fiona Ackerman is a Vancouver-based painter whose work is collected and exhibited internationally. In addition to her studio practice at Parker Street Studios, she has produced large-scale murals at 813 Burrard, building wraps, for example, the City Center Motel, and video projection at Facade Festival. She also does animation and collaborative music and video projects, and she is represented in Vancouver by Gallery Jones. Moving on, Isaac Forslund is an emerging multidisciplinary artist who's joining us from Japan, where it's morning, and video-centric freelancer whose work is deeply rooted in capturing diverse perspectives that reflect the essence of everyday experiences. With a primary focus on Super 8 and 16mm film, Forslund's artistic practice centers around the use of found footage, eco-developing, and direct animation techniques. His co-collaborator is Laura Clark, also an Eastside Culture Crawl artist at August Studios. Laura is a multidisciplinary visual artist who creates lens-based work because it provides an opportunity to capture the everyday moments that may go unnoticed. Laura's photography captures traces and evidence of human presence when people themselves are absent. To kick things off tonight, I thought maybe I'd play a short clip, about a minute long, from each of the two videos, because I want everyone in the audience, of course, to go check out the videos in their entirety at Moving Art, which is now available on the Eastside Culture Crawl website and via their YouTube channel to see them in their entirety. So I'm gonna hop on and I'm gonna start with Laura's and Isaac's video clip from Perennial first. Fantastic. So that's a short clip from Perennial, which is the moving art piece by Laura Clark and Isaac Forslund. And now for our next clip, I'm going to show about 1 minute of I Am Strange on the Inside which is video work by Fiona Ackerman and her co-creator, Arjun Miranda, excuse me, who wasn't able to join us tonight. So. All right, so there you have it. Two very different video art pieces, but I think with a lot of themes in common. And uh, maybe maybe one of you, I'm not sure who would like to start off, just telling a little bit about yourself and how you came to this work and why you decided uh, to do it as a collaboration, because collaborations are hard. And of course, the focus of tonight's artist talk is on dynamic relationships and the challenges and opportunities that come when you work with other artists. So maybe Fiona will go alphabetically. Why don't you kick it off?
Sure. So this came about because in 2021, I was offered an exhibition at a gallery that I work with in Berlin called Gallery Kramer's, and they were putting together this show that would have the theme of metamorphosis. So it was, 2021. I was already a year into doing most things out of my closet, and I knew I wasn't going to be going, and I'd gotten a little bit used to everything mostly existing on the internet because that was the only way that we could get in and out of, exhibitions and different things that were happening. So I found myself, okay, I'm going to look at this idea of metamorphosis. And I had done a lot of research and work around botanical history and metamorphosis of looking at the caterpillar turns into butterfly, and these themes had been floating around with me a lot already, so it was not a leap at all to go right into it. And I thought, well, here I am in my little closet doing my projects on video and things like that, which I was able to do during that time. And I thought, this is something that I'd like to just not explore alone. I want it to be a moving picture, not just a painting show. I want it to have a live dynamic piece to it. And I want to not be in control of everything, because I wasn't in control of anything, as none of us were, and honestly never really are. But I wanted to kind of just explore it willingly rather than have it be imposed on me. So I invited Arjun to work with me on it, and he is a Brooklyn-based fantastic musician, music producer, and I had seen a lot of video work that he started to produce himself. So I, wrote to him, and he's an old friend, and I wrote to him and say, hey, how's it going? And do you want to work on this project? It's a quick turnaround. The show is going to be in 2 months or 3 months or something. So we would have to get on it. Can you fit it in? And he said, yeah, let's do it. And we took it from there.
Fantastic. And now, Laura and Isaac, how did you come to work together on your piece? I mean, we're going to dig in deeper on both artworks shortly, but how did that happen?
Do you want me to start, Isaac?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think 2023, I decided it was going to be a year that I wanted to explore new mediums, try and, I guess, visually translate my ideas and work and concepts into other forms, making them tangible in a different way, I guess. And I had a few ideas with regards to film. It's not my background. I mean, for me, it was concepts. I'm lens-based primarily. I'm now looking at more, I guess, multimedia ways of working. And I really wanted to tell a story that was a narrative that was moving, trying to engage with an audience in a different way. And Isaac and I had collaborated on another project recently, and it was just really fun working together. Our themes are very common and overlap. We kind of, I feel like we see things in similar ways as well. And I approached Isaac and said, hey, I've got an idea. I'm wondering if you want to have a coffee and talk about it and see what you think. And I know Isaac is, he's got a lot of experience in film and video, and I've seen his work and it's amazing. And I love collaborating, and I thought it might be a really interesting way to collaborate together again. And I think we had a coffee, and you didn't think I was completely crazy. So yeah, I approached him with the idea and kind of the I guess a bit of the storyline and the meaning behind it, and where I was coming from. And
Yeah, I think the conversation started with, by the way, I'm not crazy, but here's my idea.
I think it was actually, yeah.
But yeah, I remember, yeah, we had sat down for coffee, and like it was pretty soon or shortly after we had worked together on our last project. And so like before even hearing it, I was like, of course. But then also just collaborating with our previous project that we worked on, it was pretty clear that, the materials that we used and the themes that we were dealing with were like so similar that it was like, yeah, why wouldn't we like work well on this project together? So it just kind of fell into place really easily.
So, and I mean, when I watch your video piece, I really see both of your influences in it. Of course, the everyday experiences with the washing of the dishes, Isaac, and then of course, Laura with the use of flowers. And I love that idea, the impermanence of the real flowers against the permanence of the flowers on the plates, and how that all kind of relates to, I guess, our own human or mortal experience. So Laura, it was your project apparently to start. So did you feel like you gave part of your initial vision up by taking it to Isaac? Or like, was there a moment where what you wanted kind of veered off in another direction because you were working with someone different, or because you'd worked with Isaac previously, kind of knew what to expect?
Well, the other project we did was quite different. I mean, yeah, it was quite different, but similar themes. Like we were working with flowers and botanicals and that. But honestly, I've now done some collaborations in the last year with other people as well. And I was not at all feeling like I was giving anything up. In fact, I feel the exact opposite on every collaboration I've done. It's, for me, I mean, it's exciting. It breathes new energy into work. I feel like whatever medium that might be. Yes, I did come with an idea and a vision, but I hope I was flexible on that. I mean, the meat is there, the main morsels are there, but it was actually a really cool process. Like I hope this isn't our, I hope we continue to do other ones together, because Isaac did have, you know, he's people, you know, you've got a different set of eyes, a different experiences someone's bringing in. It really made it, I think, much more interesting dynamic. There was, you know, obviously Isaac's skill set too is different than mine in terms of I don't have film background. I learned a lot in a short time, and I look forward to learning more, but he did bring some ideas forward too, and we did kind of change a little bit of the direction a little, you know, and I think it actually enriched it. I think it made it that much more interesting and fulfilling as a process for an artist in terms for myself. Yeah, it breathes new energy and life into something, I think.
That's fantastic. Fiona, I'm going to get to you in a minute. In the meantime, Isaac, I'm going to put you on the spot. Was Laura as flexible as she says?
Yeah. No, it was, yeah. Man, it was really great because I feel like for me at least, I was discovering what the work meant to me while we were building it. And so those changes were kind of a result of that, of maybe like those ideas that came out from my end were at least like my ways of yeah, processing what we were making, and also exploring, you know, just having a bit more of like a technical background, you know, how to shape narrative in a certain way that you know I think when you're talking about making a video and when you're making a video, those are two different things. So I've worked as a video editor for quite a while, and I think that that's part of the job, is also being like, how can that be enriched through like the editing process or through I mean the post-production or pre-production process as well. But yeah, no, it was so easy working. It's always easy working with Laura.
That's fantastic. So Fiona, I don't know if you're at an advantage or a disadvantage with Arjun not being here, but so you approached him. Had you worked with him previously? Like, what was the impetus in that?
No. No, I just know him. And I, you know, watched what he's done over the years. He's from, well, he lived in Vancouver ages ago and had moved away, but he's done a lot of different things. But unlike, you know, the more recent videos that we've seen, this was really in the armpit of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And after I reached out to him, we just started a Dropbox folder and just started putting files in that way. And the whole idea, I think we only had one plan, and that was to not have a conclusion in mind, because we wanted to look at the theme, what is metamorphosis? We didn't want to look at what you were and what you become, you know, the before and after. We wanted to look at the slime in the middle, because that's kind of where it felt like we were. So we just wanted to ask questions and throw ideas at things. And we actually didn't talk a lot at all. And we haven't talked about it. And I almost don't really want to, because it was really, really interesting to have this Dropbox space where you can just be kind of putting ideas in, and it's coming back, and you write, you know, a text feedback on something that you got in a document and just put it in the Dropbox, and you just sort of trust that the other person is looking at it somehow and changing and putting new things back into it. So we had this very kind of in the cocoon collaborative experience, which was very unique. And yeah, it wasn't really an issue of compromising or anything like that, because we were just taking every new development as it came and working from there as a new question.
So Dropbox was your cocoon.
Yeah. Dropbox was our.
So did you actually do, like, you commented back and forth, like within Dropbox?
So at the same time, so it was a painting exhibition originally, and I wanted to add this whole component. So I would I was working on the paintings in my studio the whole time. So then I would make little videos or animate certain pieces of a painting that I'm working on, and I would put it in the Dropbox. And then Arjan would pick it up and take it into his laboratory, we'll say, and do things that he explained to me at one point and I didn't understand and therefore don't remember. So for the purposes of this, I'll say it's top secret. And then he would transform it somehow and do all these crazy things with it and put it back in. And then I would take some of that and find a few stills and incorporate them into the paintings and just do this whole complete circle of things. So it was very much, we have to just go with how it's moving because we have a schedule and we just have to pick it up. And it's kind of like you throw the ball at me and I take it and I have to throw it back. So it was fun and it was somewhat condensed and interesting and surprising. And the whole thing led to a whole bunch of footage, which I then edited. And then we talked about what the sound would be. And that was a whole other chapter. So, yeah.
So did you work on the sound with him as well? I know you're a musician.
Yeah. So he at one point said, okay, what are we feeling for the sound? And I remember he said, I'm thinking sort of like the All the Tired Horses, Bob Dylan. I thought, that's not expected. So I sat down and I wrote kind of a in that spirit song that could go with it, which using a lot of the lyrics and the music that ended up being there. And then I sent it to him, and then he took that and completely flipped it on itself and put everything, all the lyrics and the instrumentation through into that sort of more electronic, big beat piece that we ended up with. And then I took it back and added some extra vocals and things like that. And that's how it happened. So
just going back, just so I can understand it better. So you're a painter.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. And you're in your painting studio tonight.
I am. Yeah.
And then Arjan had more of the technical capabilities that kind of flipped that on its head. And then you took that again and put it back into your painting.
Yes and no. So I learned quite a bit of video and animation, basically so-called on the job when I did a 10-minute piece for the Facade Festival in 2017. So during that, I, got that opportunity and then had to quickly find out, oh my God, how is something like this done? And asked everybody who could have an opinion what kind of software I should learn and that kind of thing. So I had some background experience in that. And I had been making videos, just little short things for fun throughout the beginning of the pandemic, just as a way to play with friends, that kinds of thing. And I do play music as well. So, so I edited and manipulated the footage that we both worked on the video really together. And then I brought it into the painting. And then we really both worked on everything, which was unusual in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic actually that we have, two sets of collaborators this evening who worked on their videos so differently. So just going back to Laura and Isaac, so you did your work, this happened 2023, right? This was this year, so you were able to work on your video in person together. Is that how you did it? Like, did Isaac show up and shoot the footage, and Laura, you wash the dishes, so to speak?
That's pretty much how it happened. We it actually happened pretty quick because Isaac was going away to do to work. Wasn't it? We had a short time. This was in the summer. Was it when did?
Yep.
Yeah.
We did all the filming in May.
That's right.
And shot 2 rolls of Super 8 film, got those developed and scanned because in June I went to live in Wells, BC for a couple of months, and so we were like, it was like the last few days before I got on a flight.
It was pretty cool. So I mean, I basically we discussed the concept and kind of all the bits and pieces of it, and talked about how we would kind of approach it. And I think most of it was filming over a couple of days, and we did it in my kitchen and talked about kind of angles. And I mean, Isaac has such a good eye and would listen to what I was saying in my ideas, and kind of then he'd be like, well, I think this is the best angle, and this, we talk about it. But we also, I mean, I learned so much because we had to plan it out, because we only had so much film. And so we had to be quite organized with nothing written down. So we really had to work well together to get it done and be really efficient about it. And
Yeah, because I think initially we did I visited your house and we kind of took the angles on the iPhone just to kind of build a rough storyboard, but we knew that because a lot of the shots were going to be still, that the actual filming, the production side of it, would be fairly straightforward. Obviously, using Super 8, you have some variables that you won't be able to predict, but yeah, it was like a two-day kind of process, and then all of the assembly of the footage was done digitally while I was away. And then the audio as well was field recordings from Laura's property, and also a few extra touches from some field recordings in Wells.
We were following birds around.
Yeah, with a little lav mic.
Yeah. And trying to get these sounds that really I wanted to hopefully pull in from kind of triggers for reminiscing and memories, and those sorts of everyday sounds that may pass some people by but can also carry meaning.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and it almost goes back, the way I think about things, to metamorphosis and transcendence and those things. But before we get to that question, I kind of just want to touch on, just while it's fresh, the whole film versus video aspect of your work, because I think it's easy to forget in this day and age where it's so much simpler to just make a video on your phone, and the only thing you're gonna run out of is data space.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
So film versus video, yeah.
Yeah, with analog, I think there's a certain allure to it that can be emulated and replicated digitally nowadays. But I do think that having the process, at least for me, was important to work with film, because there's I don't know, it feels a little more high stakes. And you make choices differently, and I like being in that space. So that's something that I tend to do, and Laura was open to working with me on that. And I think another component to it is that once I get back to Canada, we hope to actually physically splice the footage that we have together, and then do a public screening in some capacity with the actual Super 8 footage, so that the piece can live in the way that it was originally kind of captured in.
I think too, I mean, I'm going to be I'm really curious to see once that's done, because I'm anticipating that maybe there's going to be a different sense of nostalgia, and maybe kind of a reminiscent of a certain time, and warmth when we see it in the analog version.
Yeah, there's typically like a more orangey tinge, which is
Mhm.
always nice. And then you hear the motor of the Super 8 projector kind of running, and that's always fun. It's yeah, it's all kind of meant to suit that or serve that function that Laura
That
was talking
magical
about.
fuzzy whir.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Which is fine. I see my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully I'm not messing things up. I might just turn off my video for a moment, just to make sure that I'm not cutting in and out of anybody else. But I am still very much here. Fiona, so uh, your work was in video, but of course it began analog with paintings.
And Arjan works analog a lot. He's very into sound and video that is very analog based. And I don't understand it and I can't speak to it, unfortunately.
Well, he's not here, so you can just
He's
say what
not
you
here, so I can just make some up.
one of the things I really love about the differences between these two videos is how where Laura and Isaac started with a set idea, but yours was more of an exploration right from the very beginning, which is two very different ways of working. So would you do it again?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the circumstances were so unique because of the timing and where we were all at that it worked out to be something that was, for me, pretty special because it was, you know, trying this time of like trying to find connection. We weren't like everyone's trying to find connection with other people, but this was a project in trying to find connection between ideas around metamorphosis. So in this sort of like box of ideas that we were putting together, we were adding, you know, clips of things about, you know, Kafka's metamorphosis and the Zhangzhou butterfly story, all kinds of different metamorphosis ideas, and putting them all in here. And Schrodinger's cat, you know, the philosophical experiment of the cat that's in the box, and you don't know whether it's dead or alive until you open it. And is it either one of those things? But anyway, I think people are familiar with it. But putting all these ideas together and trying to find how they all link together, and that was our looking for connection, is trying to find the connection between each thing. And then the extra level was because we weren't, you know, gabbing on the phone about it. It was all being put in there. Everything was visual. So if he was reading something and he thought it was relevant, he would take a phone shot of a couple pages of text in a book and then put it in the Dropbox folder. So even that exchange, it was all visual. So it very much fit into the way that I work in my studio, where I'm not talking to anybody. It's just all ideas in my head and in my folders and things like that. So for me, it was like him as a collaborator was almost kind of like he could have been in Mars, you know, even though have known him for a very long time and I know him well, and that's fine. But it was just sort of this idea of this person out in some abyss, and you're collaborating and you're making this strange thing. So yeah, that's a bit of a different approach, I suppose, than some of the other videos.
Well, it makes me, I think there's going to be two different answers to this next question then as well, which is, Fiona, I hope you're staying with me here, is the happy accident. Was there, you know, something along the way that kind of swung it in a direction you weren't expecting, or were you expecting what happened essentially all along?
It's very hard to answer that question, because I think that we would all have to admit that if you have an expectation and then it's answered with something completely different, that somehow erases your original expectation, you know? So whatever you had doesn't exist anymore, because what is there is so present. So it almost seems inevitable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like I have this video which represents this crazy dream that I had. And it's very difficult to describe. You just have to see it. And that was the experience of it. And going into it, it's kind of, I mean, of course, a little bit nerve-wracking because there's a schedule and we don't have a lot of time. And if you've never worked with somebody, you don't know if they're going to be able to be on, you know, available as you hope or as much, but everything just worked out great. So it met my expectation of having no expectation, but a lot of hope and optimism and curiosity. That was met.
And I'm sure it made your experience of the pandemic that much
It
better
did.
and more worthwhile.
I think, like everybody, the pandemic was hard and for some, you know, excruciating in a lot of different times. But on one side of it, I had a really good time. You know, I explored things that honestly I just wouldn't have the space in my life for, and projects like this. So yeah, it was a great experience, this was.
So are you doing more video now? Like, having enjoyed the experience, are you working on more collaborations?
Well, now that life is all geared up again, I have a lot less time because I'm playing real live music with people in the room and doing all kinds of, you know, shows and things that are in the physical world. So there's a little bit less space to be cooped up in your closet for days on end.
That's very true. And it is much more enjoyable, I think,
For better or for worse. Yeah. Yeah.
in the real world, even as we're all here virtually tonight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess this is one of the good things we got out of it.
Yeah.
Laura and Isaac, I'm going to ask you about the happy accident. Was there something you weren't expecting while you were working on your project that kind of upended things a little bit and shot you off in a different direction?
I think
go ahead.
you go ahead, Laura.
I was just gonna say, I'm just thinking back to when we made it and that, but there were some slight turns in terms of Isaac and I would stop, talk about our ideas, or kind of, you know, the angle he was shooting from, or, you know, the kind of approach, or how we were gonna deliver the story, so to speak. And I'm thinking one thing in particular was with the real flowers. And we knew we kind of wanted to incorporate them somehow, and we were talking about that. And he honestly, like, it was more than it exceeded my expectations in so many ways. After I saw it, the first time I saw it, I got emotional, because Isaac's idea was to have them in the teapot and include them in that way. And so I actually think that's really powerful and just really added to what I was hoping to convey. And I think that was a key point, like in terms of maybe a happy accident. Although I just think that's also a lovely thing about working together or collaborating with someone, is that if you're, you know, on the same wavelength in some ways, and you're, you know, I think we both obviously brought our experiences into the meaning of the film. So maybe it was a happy accident, but I also think that it was percolating. Like, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, Isaac, but I think, like, as we were making it, things started really kind of coming into play, and these ideas were coming up that we did use quite a few different ideas together.
Yeah, I think as well, for me, the happy accident that comes to mind is when we were filming, we had planned to just do like one roll of Super 8, which, you know, that's never the case. So we ran out of film like
That's
that,
right.
like it was, and so and we only had one roll with us, so we had to make this mad dash to the camera store, pick up another roll of film, and come back. And it worked in our favor because, you know, we had storyboarded like a handful of shots, but we were like 80% of the way there with the first roll of film. So that gave us so much more flexibility to, you know, finish what we had storyboarded and then take a couple extra, you know, compositions to supplement the film, I think. And Laura kind of took the reins on those compositions, which was nice to see as well, because you know, the compositions initially were photos that I had taken on my phone. So while we were in the moment, we were thinking of just like, oh, well, maybe we can try this one. And then those were, you know, they were good to throw in and give a bit of a change up in, you know, in what you're seeing. It's meant to be this like slow paced meditation space, but you know, everybody has their own limitations, especially when we're saturated in media nowadays. So it did help kind of add variety to it. So I was really happy that we got to do that.
I was gonna
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna add to this too, looking at the still, and it was interesting being in the actual location of where I actually experienced this kind of meditative, contemplative memory, you know, recollections and nostalgia. So it was kind of interesting, because making this, there were some of those feelings definitely coming to the surface. And some of the shots specifically kind of evoked that for me. So yeah, just reminded of that while I'm looking at this. So it was interesting.
I think this is actually a magical moment in what is a very magical video in some ways. And I know we're at about the 15-minute mark left. So hopefully we've got some other people that are going to hop on and add some questions to the chat. But while I'm talking about it, just that meditative atmosphere, I'm assuming that you were going for it all along, and it's something I see as well with Fiona's and Arjun's video. But going back, because we haven't really talked about the meaning behind the video, and I mean a lot of that in my mind gets left up to the audience. But are there questions or ideas you want the audience to take from your video while they're watching it, and what might those things be?
So for me, in some ways, it is about the everyday, for sure. And the, you know, the experience, you know, I guess a lot of it is about grief, for sure. That's a more personal journey that I'm bringing into the film. But it's also about the beauty in the moments, those moments when they may be quiet moments, and there is the kind of that time in between, or that space in between. And it can feel very meditative. It can also feel very alone. But I was hoping to convey this feeling of solitude, perhaps, but that you're not alone. Like with the sounds, for instance, that there's these familiar sounds and these reminders that there is life outside, and it is happening around you. And sometimes you can be left with thoughts, like in particular, I'm speaking to, you know, to maybe those loved ones that are not with you anymore, or, you know, it's these times when you are left with your thoughts, and you can be left to remember. And even if you don't, subconsciously, you might not be feeling like you're thinking about that, but then they do come to the surface when you're doing. I really wanted to, like, washing, as you said at the beginning, washing dishes, something that might seem mundane or everyday, or so, you know, ordinary. And often I think we are left with our memories at the kitchen sink, or if you're gardening or you're walking or you're driving or whatever that might be. So I did want to kind of, I'm hoping that that kind of resonates with people, that you know, I mean, it is a lot about love and loss for me, but I also wanted to bring in those moments and that things continue, you know, but also those contemplative kind of sitting with things, you know, having them soak in a quiet, kind of loving gesture, like in that kind of way.
I think just to jump off of that, I personally don't feel that the video is asking the audience to ask themselves questions, or like there's no questions that they really need to be asking themselves. So the piece to me represents something that Laura and I share, is like this idea, like that we've through our conversations, that we you know, process grief you know, through similar spaces, sharing spaces like routine washing dishes, or I don't, I think he said mowing the lawn. I don't, but it's meant to represent, you know, something that's that we both share, and that it's not meant for the audience. It's not meant to speak for the audience. It's meant to speak for ourselves, I guess, more than that, more than anything.
And I think just the universality, you know, that whether it's grief or memories or, you know, just your thoughts, and that we're all human. You know, it is really about being connected in other ways. And, you know, it's definitely more personal experiences that were brought forward for this. But yeah, like I absolutely agree with Isaac that it's not necessary that people know that to also maybe relate to it or understand. For me, the flowers too, I mean, it's the, you know, reality, the physical, making the emotional or feelings tangible too, that they are there. Yeah.
Amazing. Fiona, you
I
also have a magical meditative video.
I remembered something after I heard your question repeated, the happy accidents. So one of the screen or just photos of, you know, a few pages of a book that was dropped into the Dropbox was some pages from R.A. Wilson's, it's like his 1977 book called The Cosmic Trigger. And he's this totally far out guy who's really into, you know, pan agnosticism, and just believes that everything has to be questioned. And there are many layers to it worth visiting. But when I quickly read it, I thought it said the cosmic tiger instead of trigger. And I thought, wow, this totally ties into Schrodinger's cat and like this cosmic thing that we're making and like blah, 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 blah. So the video is called I Am Strange on the Inside, but my exhibition in Berlin that held the video was called The Cosmic Tiger. And I ended up having a painting that had this tiger in it jumping through. So it sort of became this, you know, this like emblem of the whole thing was this cosmic tiger jumping from idea to idea. So that was completely a happy accident and just more random, just giving yourself the time and the space to explore connections between ideas just all the way was so great.
How far into it were you when you realized it was trigger and not tiger? Not that it mattered.
No, because it was all that inside the cocoon sludge. I feel like for me, in retrospect, it seems all at once. And it was funny because getting ready for this, I just opened up the Dropbox file and looked at what was in there. And I see, oh, there's just a whole file of random questions you know, but it all just exists at the same time. You know, there's not even a chronology. And the way the video was put together, because we worked through all of this different imagery and it was coming in and out of the painting stuff, and I would mess with it and he would mess with it. Besides the fact that the music came after, all the video was, I edited it together in an order that made sense for the video, but not a chronology of when it was produced. So the whole thing is a soup of the experience. So, I don't know, at the beginning, middle, and end.
I love that. A cosmic soup.
Yeah.
So we're at the 10-minute mark. I don't see any questions coming in. Do you guys have questions for each other? Like, how do you feel possibly that your situations of collaboration were the same or different?
It seems like they were quite opposite in a lot of ways, which is nice to explore the two sides, because on almost every level, we seem to have done the opposite thing. You guys had a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was curious, Fiona, because, you know, the film you have is kind of like each element just like bleeds into each other so seamlessly, you know, that it all becomes this one, you know, flowing progression. Were there moments in your process where, like, how do you kind of like build that non-chronological process, that beginning, middle, and end? How are you kind of like navigating those choices? Is it all just kind of like stream of conscious? This element looks nice next to this one, or is it like, yeah, like how does that kind of thing work for you?
It turns out it's all painting. I've been a painter for 25 years, and that was just a durational painting. So you start with too much, you get rid of things, you put them together, you respond to what happened before, what could come next. It builds itself. So you just get into the painting zone and click, click, click on the mouse over and over again. Yeah. So that's why I really loved it, because it felt so much like painting.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I found it really mesmerizing to watch the motion and the transitions and the color and the like. It was really amazing to watch.
Thank you. And I appreciated what I appreciated about your video that's very different than mine is that it causes you to stop in a moment and experience it, where ours is intentionally not letting you stop anywhere. It's like bam, 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 something new. Don't look up here, look over here, look over here, you know? So watching yours was a great sort of opposite experience of just wait a minute. Just stop so that you can actually experience this happening in your own way. Like I enjoyed being able to have the duration of not just having a reaction to one thing, but actually having it change through the length of the scenes in your film. So very contrasting there.
Just going back to like responding off of ideas, did you find yourself responding more to your own ideas or to Arjan's ideas, like when they came in? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you kind of like building off of something that you had started earlier, or when you kind of get the new date in Dropbox, are you kind of like eager to build off of that new change?
I guess it's kind of like, if once the ball gets rolling, you kind of want to surprise the other person a little bit. So you want to take what they gave you, and it's like a little bit of poker, you know? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to bring this in here, and yeah, just back and forth. I do have distance from it now, so I don't remember exactly the moments of it, but it was very much looking forward to being surprised if something new. And particularly when I sent him the first version of the song, and he has a recording studio, So he transformed it into something so different that when I first heard that, I felt very overwhelmed and emotional and happy and excited, because something had been turned into, from something that was so just kind of like, here's a rough demo, I'm sorry it sounds terrible, it's just a seed of an idea, to something much bigger. Was like, wow, thank you. That's like, I was one-upped.
We had a question in the chat about where to watch the videos. And so I just wanted to jump in before we get to the end of this evening and just remind everybody that didn't see the answer that Moving Art and Fiona's and Laura's and Isaac's videos are being shown at Strange Fellows now through the end of the month. And then also on the Eastside Culture Crawl's YouTube channel. There's a link in the chat to that, but you can also find it on the website at upcoming events. I wanted to thank you guys for showing up tonight. Thanks
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Talking to me.
And regrets from Arjan
Yeah.
too. So appreciating that it couldn't work, but thank you for the invitation.
No, it's wonderful to hear the inside scoop on your beautiful works. Like I said, magical and meditative, both of them. I want to remind everybody tuning in that you can find Fiona at her studio at Parker Street Studios and Laura at her studio at August Studios on Clark Drive. Isaac is in Japan, so if you find him, you'll have to let us know all about it. But this year's Eastside Culture Crawl runs from November 16th until November 19th. And we have 2 more talking art panels coming up tomorrow night and Wednesday. So I hope you'll tune in. And this will, of course, be saved and available for all of you to watch again and again and again and again on the Culture Crawl YouTube channel as well. So thank you guys for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great to see everyone.
Yeah.